Hello and welcome to the Simplifiers podcast. I am so thrilled about our next guest that's coming up today. You guys, so until you get to meet him, I just am so excited for you. My friend, Calvin Wayman, is on the podcast today. And Calvin, let me just say what we're all about is simplifying things here. So don't be talking complex. Don't be breaking down any crazy jargon or lingo. Just talk to me real person to real person and make it simple. You might know our next guest from Entrepreneur Magazine or the Huffington Post. You may have actually heard him give his debt-free scream on the Dave Ramsey show. Can we hear it? Or you might know him from his best-selling book, Fish Out of Water. He is one of the most down-to-earth guys that you'll ever get to meet, and he just dares a dream. And I want you to really get to know his story and understand from him and have this very smart person break down some things that he knows best and simplify them. He went from $53,000 in debt to literally financial freedom, and he's gone also, Calvin, I hear, from being overweight to losing 52 pounds. That's incredible. So his passion is helping others see what's possible for them, crafting their story that they share with the world through social media and the relationships they have with fear to live a life beyond your wildest imagination. He's the host of a top-rated podcast, Curious with Calvin Wayman. I would like to welcome to the Simplifiers podcast, Calvin Wayman. Hello.
Mary, thank you so much for having me.
I am so thrilled you're here.
I'm glad that you like things that are simple too, because that's the only way I know how to be. Is just like I try to not keep it complicated. So that's fine with me.
So here's what I'd like to talk to you about. You have this thing called the Millionaire case study. It's basically mapping your journey from everyday working guy doing a desk job to becoming a millionaire. Can you just tell us a little bit about that and what led you to go on that journey?
Totally. So where it all started was probably people right now listening to this podcast. I was, as you mentioned, I was at like a desk job. I started picking up a lot of audiobooks. I started to listen to podcasts and watch YouTube videos of people that were successful. And then because of that, I started to dream. I started to dream of, what if that could be my life? What if I wasn't stuck in a day job of something I didn't like? What if I was able to travel? What if I was able to speak? What if I was able to do crazy things like Spartan races? And I then started to look up people's stories that were super successful. Like some people that come to mind off the top of my head are people like Jim Carrey, the comedian, or Gary Vaynerchuk, the entrepreneur, and Lewis Howes, who we both know mutually.
Yes.
And I would look at their story and see where they came from. But what I noticed is I was like, yeah, I see that they're successful, but all these stories that I have, like I want to see their origin. Like there's this video of Jim Carrey on Oprah talking about before he made it, like going up on this drive and like visualizing directors being interested in him, and he wrote himself like a $10 million check and stuff. And I was like, okay, cool. Let's rewind and watch that happen. And I would YouTube like crazy, Google like crazy, and try to find content and information and people's story of their rise as it was happening, like, or even before it happened. And quite frankly, it didn't exist.
Right, because it's all like very filtered. It's like, oh, I'm magically now a 7-figure, 8-figure business, and there's nothing in between.
And some people will even talk about the struggle and the crap in the early days, but still it's usually only conversations that are talked about after the fact that they're successful. And so I felt like there was so much lost in translation.
Yes.
And so what I ended up doing was saying, you know what? If it doesn't exist, first of all, do I really want to go after this stuff? Do I really believe I can, first of all? And if I can, and it doesn't exist, why don't I just hit record and start documenting it
and make it go?
And yeah, and honestly, I remember the day I was going to start doing it, and I was like, well, I'll wait until because I literally don't even have a client yet. And I was like, actually, no, this is a small window. Like if I ended up getting like 10 clients it would make this point even better. The point where I started, where I don't have any client. And so that's when I started. So I started the whole journey in January 2016, just a short time after quitting my day job. Had no clients yet and have just been documenting ever since.
Excellent. So tell me, what was your day job? What were you doing?
I was doing a sales job. So I I from taking the advice of another book I read, said that you need to work to learn, not work to earn.
Hmm.
And if you're going to be good in business, you need to be good with people and communication. And one of the best skills you can learn is sales. So I joined a business for sales, was there for a while, got to the point where I wasn't challenged anymore, just stuck there for fear. And then one day just said, okay, here goes. I'm going to jump.
So I think what we're talking about today on the podcast is how to become a millionaire simplified.
That's kind of interesting.
Could
You
you
guys think that's
could you just simplify it into 5 easy steps, Calvin?
some lessons I can, well, in transparency, I'm not a millionaire yet, so I can only
Work in
tell you what I've
progress.
done. Yes, I can tell you what I've done to reach last year around 150K from zero. So I'm about 10%ish on the way.
Amazing.
Uh, but it's actually quite interesting because it fits the theme of your podcast.
Hmm.
And it's this. One thing that I learned is one thing that kept me stuck from progress for a long time is thinking I needed every step laid out before I took action. And what I realized later is all this time I think I was actually doing something. I wasn't really doing anything. I was planning on the sidelines. I
Hmm.
wasn't really in the game. And so to keep it super simple, I would say don't worry about planning out all the steps.
Hmm.
Know the direction you want to go, know where you are, and take a freaking step.
Yeah.
Like it's literally that black and white. At least that's what it's been for me. What's the direction I want to go? Where am I now? Take a step.
Hmm.
Get in the game. And and you every time you take a step, you have a new starting point. Like you grow from there. And then you're like, okay, based on the direction, where am I now? What's the next step?
Yeah.
And progress has happened that way and a little bit of momentum in some areas. Now, of course, it hasn't grown as fast as I would want it to be in some points because it'd be cool if I was the millionaire right now in this moment. I kind of wish it happened already because every day it's like going after it. But I'm now to the point where I'm loving the journey and I'm loving the playfulness of going after it
Hmm.
than actually having it, if that makes sense.
Well, and
So
I mean, that's the reality, right? Like, so you probably were a kid of the early 80s as I was as well. Do you remember the Family Circus cartoons and comics that little Dave would have?
the comic
Yeah, the
strips,
comic strip for Family Circus. And little Dave has to
vaguely.
go from home to school. And so you follow the little path of Dave going to school. And he loops underneath the slide. He goes up across the swings. He stops over off the candy store, like it goes everywhere. So I think in reality, that is what it's like to be an entrepreneur is that you know where point A is, where you're starting. You know where point B is, where you want to get. You don't necessarily know the path that you're going to take, but that's part of the
That's
fun, right?
awesome. It totally is.
Yes.
Yeah. And again, I think the trap is is thinking you need to have it
Yes.
because in a weird way that I don't know, that makes it so you don't end up getting it because it makes you not want to take action. So if you ever hear people talking about faith or facing fear, I think that's kind of what it is.
Hmm.
It's being willing to step into the darkness, even if you don't know exactly where you're going to end up and you don't know what step C, D, and E is. You
Yeah.
just know the next step, but just trust and keep doing it.
100%. So, what would you say drives you every single day? And I know you've got young ones at home and a
Mm,
wife and all that, but what drives you at the core of you?
That is such a good question because I've been getting that more. I don't know if it's because I follow Gary Vaynerchuk quite closely and he's had an impact on me, but or if this is just a human thing and maybe it resonates with me because it's also true with me, but legacy is freaking huge for me.
Mm.
And I feel like it has been for a long time because something I haven't talked about enough, I think, is I've actually been journaling every single day, virtually every single day since I was 17 years old.
Wow.
So I have a journal entry. I'm 30 now for literally every single day for the past 13 years
Volumes.
and
Volumes.
volumes. And
Hmm.
why did I start it when I was 17? Like I could have even started it sooner, but wherever it came from, I legacy was in mind, like something that could be captured and kept and passed on, and something like there's just something that does not feel good about dying and then being done forever.
Mm.
And I'm of the belief that I'll still exist in some form outside of this human form, but still, like I want to have something that is impacting other people, like Steve Jobs is still right now, or like
Mm.
Jim Rohn is with other people, like Socrates and Plato, like people that have been gone for hundreds or thousands of years and they're still making impact on society. That drives me in a really big way.
Mhm.
I don't know where it comes from, but it's there. So in everything I do, I want to create that legacy.
And I think it sounds like to me, that's not coming from an ego place. That's really coming from making a positive impact on the world. Like, spending your time wisely while you're on the planet so that your children, your grandchildren, and generations to come will feel that impact, right?
I feel that. It's weird. I have such because I try to not label it or whatever, because somehow it's so hard for me to define ego, because
Mm.
I like doing good things for people because it makes me feel good.
Yeah.
So am I really doing it for them, or am I doing it for myself? I don't know. Like
Hmm.
I love being selfless because of how it makes me feel. But is that really selfless if I feel good about it? I don't know. So it is one of those things, like yes, I want to help people, but I don't know if it is ego, or if it is my ego saying it's not ego. I don't know.
Well, maybe
I
taking the ego out of it, just being selfless, like leading with love, right? I
Yeah.
think one of the things that I know about you that you do really well is connecting the dots. And when I say that, it's all about relationship building. So a lot of the videos that you've put out in the Millionaire case study is all about really going out there and connecting people, but then also, like you were saying earlier, not having the fear, but taking a step forward and going and meeting some of the people that are, an influence on you as well, going up and asking questions.
Dude, that's what's made me start to realize that, holy cow, maybe I could actually do this. I
Yeah.
remember, since you'll actually like this, since we both know Lewis. Um, Lewis was one of the first people in the internet that I met in the real world.
And who
Like
he's talking about is Lewis Howes of
Lewis
the
House.
School of Greatness. Hmm.
Yes. So he has the School of Greatness podcast. That was one of the first podcasts I ever listened to. And then after I quit my day job, I moved to Southern California. I went to this event and I saw Lewis House. Literally, I don't know if he knows this. I should tell him this. He's literally the first human being that I saw kind of famously on the internet in real life. And I remember when I saw him, it kind of jolted me at first. And I was like, holy crap, where's his paparazzi? And he was there just with Caesar,
Hmm.
his buddy that helps him, Matt Caesaroni or something. How I can't remember how to pronounce his last name. But he was there with his buddy Matt, and I had a conversation with him. And this is not to take anything from Lewis, because he's a cool dude, but it humanized him.
Yeah.
Like I saw how much of a human he was, and it opened up my eyes. I was like, whoa, this guy's a human too. So then I kept going. Like at other events, would just go up to other people that were speakers and start having conversations, whether it was a James Altucher or a
Hmm.
Gary Vaynerchuk or a Ty Lopez, and
They're all just people.
realized,
They're just
yeah.
people. Hmm.
And it's so cool if you're somebody that's wanting to go after something bigger. Because when I was in the beginning, I remember thinking, whoa, there's this separation like
Mm.
between myself and them, like they're on this pedestal. And I remember when I met them, it was like this childlike realization that was like so giddy. I was like, holy cow, they're normal too, which means if they're normal like me and where they're at now, maybe, just maybe, I could go after that and become
Mhm.
that too. Holy crap, this makes it more real. So
So
it was a real book.
it sounds like to me, I mean, if we're talking about literally the path to becoming a millionaire and simplifying that path, another lesson that you've learned along the way is, we're all just people. We're all just
Yes.
normal, everyday people, no matter what our stature or influence or reaches in the world or our bank account numbers, just real
That
people.
is something that is probably
And say hello.
the main message that I want to keep,
Mm.
because I'm already starting to feel it in some ways where
As your
people
following
are,
grows.
yeah,
Hmm. That's
I'm starting to
interesting.
feel how I put it to other people. Like,
Hmm.
uh, where I've been asked to speak at other events, and people come up to me as though they're different than me and that they can't do it. And my whole message, like, I just want to shake them like, no, dude, look, I get it. I get where you're at because I was the same way. But guess what? Here's the coolest thing. I'm a regular person. Like, I seriously had the same thing. Like, I want you to know that. Like, it's a big deal. I wanna hammer that, especially as I go from the 100K, 200, 500 to the million. Like, if there's one thing that I want people to really get, and that's what I hope they can get with looking at episodes 1 through 30 on Millionaire Case Study versus to the person I am now, and that is, I was a sloppy, like, didn't know what I was gonna do. Like, I was normal, and I want people to know that, because if they can really get it, then I think they can believe that whatever it is they feel called to do, that they can go after it too.
So we have creative entrepreneurs that listen to this podcast, and they're sitting there working out on their cardio machine, listening to your voice, going, "Okay, this everyday guy is on the path to becoming a millionaire. He's doing the thing, right?" Can we talk about your health and wellness, like that side
Sure.
of the equation? So you've gone through this transformation. You're starting to do runs. You've lost a lot of weight. Do you think that correlates with becoming a millionaire?
Totally.
And why is that?
So there's some things that I don't know where I picked up, and I'm glad I did. But one of them was health. Actually, as I just paused on it for a quick second, I realized what got me into it. It was needing a sense of control. So if something like $1 million felt so out of my control, and I thought, well, if at the very least I have got to be able to make my body come under my subjection, or like I need to have like control over that. And the bonus of that is having health, longevity, and energy to be able to do those things. But I just figured that if I was going to get to the point where I could command $1 million life, I should be able to command my body now. And I wanted to be able to command it today in this moment and not wait several years like I am having to do with the patience of the journey of making $1 million, right? So that's what got me into it. And then it just became momentum for me, because I went from hating working out to, I was like, what can I do to build consistency around this? And so I tried to figure out how to work out consistently, and I would start working out consistently, and then I'd fall off the wagon, and then I'd tweak it and try something else and get like 2 weeks in this time and then fall off the wagon. And then I just kept fine tuning to figure out things to make it simple. Like, that's literally what it was like, what can I do to make it even more and more simple? Then I got it to the point where I fine-tuned the system that it was simple enough that I worked out every single day for 2 years straight in a row.
Great.
After going from somebody that hated working out. And here's the tactical takeaway of what I ended up getting to. For those of you listening, where like at this time of year people have fallen off the wagon, here's something you can do to adjust to get back on if health's really your thing. So I broke it down. I broke exercise down to something that was so stupid simple that I knew that even if I knew I could do it, because I was doing it already with Netflix. So this was literally my goal. At first I planned on, I'm going to work out for 30 minutes. Or an hour probably is where I started. An hour, 30 minutes, then 15 minutes, 10. And then I realized I was asking the wrong question. And I was like, what's something that I could do even when I'm sick, even when I don't feel like here's a big takeaway. I was planning as though I was going to do it when I was on my best behavior, or when I had the most motivation. What could I do when I was on my worst behavior, or when I was not feeling the most motivated? And you want to know what it broke down to? It broke down to pushing play on a DVD. Like, that literally was the goal. That was literally the goal. I was
and then move your body.
Yes, because even if I move it for a second, that's better than nothing.
Yes.
So the goal, like my whole mental willpower that I had to summon up, was the willpower to push play on a DVD player. And I knew I could do that because I could push play on a DVD player if I was going to lounge around and watch Netflix.
Yep.
So I literally just push play on the DVD, and then if I moved around for a second, that was better than nothing. But that second obviously turned into 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then I ended up doing the whole workout, whether it was 30 minutes to an hour. And I did that some nights after work, at 1, 2, even 3 a.m. in the morning, where willpower is completely gone.
Yep.
But because it was so simple, pushing play, and even a single second of movement is better than nothing, it built up the momentum. And so I just think that's such a cool takeaway with what this podcast is all about, because that's what ultimately broke it down to, is just that
I love
super
that.
simple.
And I mean, if you think about smart TVs these days as well, you can pipe in channels into your smart TV like Gaia, and you literally have a whole library of yoga, 10-minute yoga routines right at your fingertips. I love that.
Now I do it all. Now I do Beachbody's workout programs either on my phone or on the
it's
internet.
so simple.
DVDs.
And, I think when it comes down to that, because technology is caught up with making it as literally as simple as it's in your living room, it's on your phone, it's wherever you are, you don't need any special fancy gear, it then comes down to mindset. Are you willing to press play? Are you willing to stand up and do the thing? I love that. So tell us a couple of simple things that I could do right now to, help myself simplify becoming a millionaire, whether that's either, just like you were saying with the pressing play, like maybe productivity or, how I talk about my brand on social media. What would be just 3 or 4 simple things I could do like right now?
One thing is, you mentioned mindset, shifting your mindset on decisions. So this was a big thing because I used to obsess and worry if I was making the right decision or not. Like after I made it, I would then worry, like, was that the right one? Should I have done like, what should I do? And or I would talk myself out of it. I would talk myself out of the decision after it was made. And I had a simple shift that happened somewhere in my journey where one of my mentors told me what millionaires do and successful people do. And I will give it to you right now, because if you take this, progress will be, it'll just happen. And it's this: instead of worrying if you made the right decision or not, successful people don't worry if they make the right decision or not. Instead, they make the decision and then they make it right. So don't worry if you make the right decision or not. Instead, make a decision and then make it right. What that is to say is, it's not the point of decision that is the end all and be all. You have to decide to move. But it's what you do after the decision is made that's going to ultimately make it the right or wrong decision. I could quit Millionaire Case Study right now and chalk it up as that was a bad decision for the last 2.5 years, because it's been how much work and time I put into it. Or I could say I made the decision, so even though it's freaking hard and I'm not there yet, I'm going to push through because it's the right decision. So when I actually hit it, it makes everything like line up and show that it was good. And so what I think is important is you become your own self-fulfilling prophecy, like based on the energy and the attention you put on after the decision is made. So that's a big one, is to make a decision, then make it right. You got to decide so that you can get moving, because it's about progress. And progress doesn't happen unless you make a decision and go get moving.
And take action. It kind of reminds me of the latest book out, Brendan Bouchard. He's got that book, High Performance Habits, right? And, it really does come down to, like, I think that's where a lot of entrepreneurs slip, is that they make a decision, they go, oh, was that the good idea? And then they go back and they circle back and they circle back. You make the point and then you take the step forward. It's not taking 3 steps back.
Totally. And sometimes you'll make a decision and learn from it, but you're right. You can still make a different decision that is a forward decision and not 100%. An undoing decision. Make a forward decision, not an undoing decision.
So when something goes horribly wrong, or you put a campaign out there and it flops gloriously, when you have failures, all failures are learning, right? At the end of the day. Yeah. Totally. And you keep going forward.
Yeah, and it's so easy to get frozen by those ideas of failures. But one thing, again, that I love that Gary Vee talks about is your losses are your losses. Like, they're yours. Like, don't let anybody else or anybody else's thought around failure stop you. But then there's also an older quote. I won't quote the whole thing, but it's something from Theodore Roosevelt, and it's such a good long quote. But it's like, it's not the critic who counts. Like, it's not the one that who's just on the sidelines pointing at the strong one stumbling, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to those that are actually in the arena. So just know that that is the win. Not getting the result, not getting to point Z, getting in the game and going after it. That is the win.
That's the win. I love it. So tell me then, what's the next step for you in this millionaire case study, this journey for you?
This podcast.
What are you working for?
So this podcast right now, one thing that, so I went to Costa Rica and had a interesting experience with ayahuasca and all that stuff. But not to go into that too deep, one of the things that I'm leaning into more and more and more is getting silent with everything else out there and feel like, what is the right next step from my perspective, like from my soul's perspective, as weird as that sounds or fluffy, like literally like what feels right.
Yeah.
That's the next step. And then I'm trusting and taking that. And so a couple big things have happened, like something I haven't announced or shared too publicly that some friends and family are noticing is like one of my next steps that came out of last year that was a surprise was to leave my religion. So the religion I was in for 30 years, which was a very conservative fundamentalist religion with awesome people, but just not for me, I made the decision to leave that. So I'm having a little bit of like pressure from that, but it felt like the right thing personally for me. Like, people that are in it, awesome. I love them. Stay there, grow in there, but it's not for me. And then the next step for me business-wise was, holy cow, I think I should have a podcast. Yeah, that feels right. And then doing that and going all out, like something I haven't even announced on my social yet. I'll probably announce it before this goes out. So I'll say, first of all, I'm giving something away every episode just for fun. And I decided as of yesterday that on the 1-year anniversary, I'm going to give away a car on my podcast. So just having fun, like just doing what feels like I should be doing and leaning there, and the podcast is that thing right now for me.
And so people can tune into your podcast. It's called Curious with Calvin Wayman. And so we'll put the link in the show notes so everybody can go check yours out as well. So I want to wrap up. Sadly, I could talk to you for days because I think the concept of what you're doing is fascinating and is such a dream in so many entrepreneurs' minds. But let's be honest, 90% of entrepreneurs fail in their business in the first 5 years. People give up along the way. They hit fumbles or roadblocks or challenges and all of that. So talking to those guys, the every man, the every woman that's out there listening to you right now, share some of the insight of what's really, really working for you. So what I want to ask you, Calvin, is what are you reading these days? Are you stumbling upon great books or blogs that are really super inspiring to you or challenging you in any way?
This is probably going to be not the best advice or the best answer for a podcast, but it's the truth. So I went from consuming a lot of awesome content, like 50 books a year was what I did leading up to my thing with audiobooks. What has helped me a lot recently is cutting out almost everything.
Interesting.
So, yes. So I'm getting so much into just like doing what I feel like I should be doing mode, like produce. It's not about like, I feel like a lot of the best ideas and the best businesses and the best products are not on Amazon right now. They're in the graveyard. There's stuff that never actually got put out there. I don't want that to be me. So I'm literally trying to do things I can to have the least amount of distractions as possible. Now I still get distracted. I will like go on YouTube and find a rabbit hole and go down it once in a while. But I try to, with my audiobooks that I listen to now, they're very specific to the thing that I'm working on. For example, a book that I'm reading right now is something called Sell to be Sold or something like that. What the hell did I just forget it? I'm mixing up a title with Grant Cardone's book, Sell or Be Sold. Built to Sell.
Built to
That's
Sell.
what it's called.
Excellent
Built
book.
to Sell.
Excellent
Just
book.
because just because I want to, not that I'm necessarily wanting to sell my business yet, but I want to from the foundation build it right so
Mm-hmm.
that I'm not the bottleneck in all the systems and stuff like that. So I'm reading stuff like that. But what's really been working, getting up in the morning and taking care of me, like making sure my energy is where it needs to be, doing yoga, doing meditation, getting clear. One of my favorite ways to get clear is to write, something that outside of journaling I never really did, but it's helped me quite a bit the last year and a half. So just doing those things to get solid with me and then taking a step, that has helped quite a bit.
Love it. Any good apps or tools that you have stumbled upon recently that have helped
Yeah.
you as being an entrepreneur? Not necessarily as a
Yes.
podcaster, but as an entrepreneur.
Yes. So if you're into meditating or you want to experiment with it,
Mm-hmm.
there's two apps that I highly recommend. One is Headspace
Yes.
and the other one is Calm.
Mm-hmm.
So Headspace and Calm are both guided meditation apps that help you just walk through the process of like getting like seeing what it's like to meditate, because sometimes people just try to do it just by sitting and being quiet. If you're new to meditation, that could be torture, and it you may not be able to do it and you may not stick with it. Calm and Headspace are two apps that have like programs. I have no affiliation with them, but I freaking love both of them. I should
Yes.
actually make them sponsors on my
They're
podcast.
both excellent. I could listen to Andy's voice on Headspace like every single day.
Yeah.
He's just like butter.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
I love Andy's voice. I like both of them, just to have a mix. And then another app that helps me get shit done and
hmm
focused is, I don't know if we realize how, at least I didn't realize how many times I got distracted throughout the day. And so there's this app called Tide,
hmm
Tide, and what it's designed to do is to give you focus sessions. So there's sessions where it tracks sessions and you can decide what the time period is, but you just do the main thing, whatever your main thing is for that set period of time. Like, you know that you can go out into the real world and get distracted after that Tide session, but do it and then see how many Tide sessions you can get in for the
yes,
day, how many focus sessions you can get in.
I
So
love that.
those have helped me.
That's great. Yeah, I've used Tide before. I think even Tide has, for those that work at home by themselves and miss having people around them, you can actually pipe in audio sound, ambient sound, like if you were in a cafe, so like a noisy place. Isn't
Totally.
that funny?
Yep.
Because some
It
people
is
love
funny.
that. For me, not white space,
Yeah.
that's like literally death.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Tide is excellent. And that helps you kind of break into the Pomodoro technique of like 20 minutes on, 5 minutes off, like really
Yep.
laser focusing into the work that you're doing. I think there's a big trend now. I certainly believe this and teach my students on it. The idea that you can multitask actually is an old idea, but it's actually better to just do the one thing, laser focus on the one
Totally,
thing, crank.
totally agree. You couldn't have convinced me of that like a few years ago. I'd have thought I thought that I was so good because I had like 15 browser windows open at one
Tabs
time.
all, yeah.
Yeah, and like I could just bounce back and forth. But no, if you think you're good at 15 tabs, do one and laser focus and see how effective you are.
And do
Like,
it
it is just
fast.
insane.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then move on to the next one and do one thing
Oh,
and do it fast. All right,
yep.
Calvin, thank you so much. I want to end on a few questions that I like to ask every single person that comes on the podcast. First and foremost, tell us one person you know that we should interview on the Simplifiers podcast and why. One person.
And it has to be somebody in my circle that I could actually connect you with,
Well, that would be
not
ideal.
just
Not just Oprah.
yes. Yeah, because Oprah would be cool. Gary Vaynerchuk would be cool.
Somebody who's smart, knows their stuff, and could simplify something either in business or in life for an
Somebody that
entrepreneur.
comes to mind is a guy named Frankie Vignon.
Okay.
He was somebody that he coached with me for about 6 months, and he has a similar journey, and where he was working an awesome job, and over this past year, he quit his day job that a lot of people would kill for because it was like a multiple six-figure income job, but it wasn't his thing. And he's crushing. He's doing super well in his own business, and so he has tips and tricks and strategies that he's used to have the progress that he's had. So he's
Amazing.
definitely somebody that comes to mind.
Sweet. So gratitude and simplicity, in my opinion, go hand in hand. I would like to ask you, like, tell me, what are you grateful for right now?
What I'm grateful for right now, honestly, is as I've had people like you and others that have come up to me over the last couple of weeks and bring up what I've done or what I'm doing, it's made me so grateful that I actually get to play this game. Like before, I've had like it was cool that I got to be the entrepreneur, but I was always like chasing the thing and wait. And so when I'm chasing the thing and thinking I'm not good enough until I'm there, then it puts me in an energy of lack. But I've really, really seen the joy in playing the game, and I'm now to the point where I think playing this game of going after it is more fun than actually winning the game. Like trying to win the game is more fun than actually winning. And so I'm just so freaking grateful that I have the freedom and everything to just 3 years ago going from being at a job, couldn't do anything that I want to, I literally can say based on like, this is my life. I get to design it. I get to go on these trips and meet these people, do these things. I get to play the game.
Yeah.
And I couldn't be more happy for that.
I love it. We talk a lot about doing the thing here. What's one thing, and you've given us lots of great tips and ideas, but what's one thing, if you could drill it down, that our listeners could do today based on our conversation to get them a simple, tiny win that they can accomplish easily and get them momentum?
Become a member of the CIA.
Ha!
Now, before you think I complicated that, I don't mean go join the special forces. Take consistent, imperfect action. This is a common thread in my life and in all these people that I've looked up to that are super successful. They did not get frozen by it looking just right, and oftentimes we do. So don't worry about it being just right. Take consistent, imperfect action. Just do it, and that's how you'll win.
Hashtag DTT, do the thing. I love it. Where can we find you online? Where do you hang out the most?
Facebook and Instagram. I'm on Snapchat as well if you have some Snapchat peeps, but
Cool.
Facebook and Instagram for sure.
So we'll put the links down below, but Calvin Wayman is just simply
Yep,
your everywhere.
I'm Calvin Wayman everywhere. Yep, Calvin Wayman.
So you do a lot of social media stuff, and you've got something called the Social Media Makeover. Tell us about that. What's going on?
Yeah. So something I'm doing right now. So my main business that I'm running is a company called Cobb's Media. It's Calvin and Hobbes put together was the original name. But we're a social media management company. So we manage people's social media. But something that we're doing right now is we have something called a social media makeover where we're helping people stand out on social media. Because again, something that I want to step into more and more is helping people craft their story and who they are. So we're giving away our $300 value social media makeover sessions for free on this podcast. So you can sign up for one by going to socialmediamakeover.org. And again, what we'll do is myself personally or probably somebody on my team will get on the phone and see what you're up to on your social media, give you tips and strategies of what you can do to stand out based on what you want to do. Again, that's at socialmediamakeover.org, $300 value. You can grab it and schedule it just by going to socialmediamakeover.org.
Amazing. Thank you, Calvin. I really appreciate you making time today to be on the Simplifiers podcast.
This was a ton of fun. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. All right, we are wrapping up right now. Thanks again to Calvin Wayman. And make sure to check out his links down below in the show notes to see where he's at and connect with him. Real guy, not a messenger bot. Talk to a real person on social media. Imagine. And I'd love to circle back with you in a year from now and see if you've doubled your income, tripled, or have made the mark.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Thanks again.